They said they'd always be there. They held your hand in hard times. They promised forever until one day they disappeared. No warning, no explanation, just absence. And now you're left with echoes. Echoes of laughter that turned into silence. Echoes of memories that replay themselves like a haunting lullaby. And a simple, painful question that never quite leaves your chest. Why did they leave? If you've ever had someone walk away and leave you spinning in confusion, if you've replayed messages, scanned every word, every smile, looking for signs you missed, if you've sat in the dark thinking, what did I do wrong? This video is for you. Because the truth is, not everyone is meant to stay. And not every goodbye is punishment. Some departures are guidance. In this journey, we'll explore what Buddhism reveals about why people leave our lives, how to stop blaming yourself, how to transform pain into peace, and how to reclaim the energy you gave away. Let's begin. 1. People leave when their lesson is complete. In a small monastery near a flowing river, a young monk once asked his master, "Why do people come into my life only to leave? Why does it hurt so much when they disappear?" The old master said nothing at first. He simply pointed to the river and said, "Sit here. Watch." As they sat in silence, a single leaf floated by, graceful, aimless, fleeting. The master smiled. That leaf touched the surface of the water. It danced for a moment, then it was carried on. Did the river fail the leaf? No, it carried it as long as it was meant to. Some people come into our lives like that leaf. They arrive gently, unexpectedly. Some bring joy. Others bring a challenge. Some awaken something deep in us that we had forgotten. And just when we begin to believe they're meant to stay, they drift away. The human mind, wired for continuity and control, struggles deeply with impermanence. When someone we love leaves, be it through a breakup, betrayal, distance, or even death, our first instinct is to question our worth. What did I do wrong? Was I not enough? Why couldn't I make them stay? But from a Buddhist perspective, relationships are not meant to be owned or possessed. They are sacred encounters, and each one has its beginning, its rhythm, and most importantly, its ending. In the Zen tradition, every connection is seen as karma unfolding. Each person we meet is a mirror, a messenger, or a moment of teaching. When their lesson is complete, when the karmic thread has run its course, the universe naturally begins to dissolve the bond, not because something went wrong, but because the exchange has served its purpose. This is where our suffering begins, not in the event itself, but in our resistance to its natural flow. We hold on, we reply, we demand closure. But energy that has finished its cycle cannot be revived by willpower. Trying to force permanence on what was always meant to be temporary is like trying to hold a gust of wind in your hand. On a biological level, the body doesn't distinguish between emotional loss and physical danger. When someone leaves, especially without explanation, our system goes into protection mode. The heart rate elevates, muscles tense, the mind obsesses, hoping that if it finds the answer, the pain will stop. But what the body needs is not answers. It's permission to feel, to grieve, and eventually, to release. The deeper truth is that not everyone who enters your life is meant to walk with you forever. Some are just here to remind you of your value. Some are meant to wake you up from illusions. Some are simply guides, brief, necessary, and transformative. But here's where it gets even more profound. The moment someone leaves you, your energy begins to shift. You might not notice it right away, but the absence they leave creates a space. And space is never empty. it becomes fertile ground for something new to grow. The more gracefully we accept this truth, the more open we become to what's next. New people, new opportunities, deeper awareness, all begin to enter, not because we chase them, but because we finally stop clinging. There's something mysteriously beautiful in this. When someone's time in your life is complete, it's not just about their departure, it's about your expansion. You're being moved into a new season, one where you're no longer dependent on their validation, their attention, their presence. You begin to reclaim your center. This does not mean the love wasn't real. It doesn't mean the bond was meaningless. It simply means that its role is fulfilled. And just like the leaf on the river, we can choose to honor the time it spent with us, rather than resent the moment it floated away. Letting go of someone doesn't require anger or blame. It requires humility. The humility to say, "Thank you for what you brought into my life. I release you now," with gratitude. And perhaps even more importantly, I release myself from needing to keep you. Because clinging is not love, it's fear disguised. And when we love from a place of fear, we only shrink. But when we allow the impermanent nature of life to breathe through us, something miraculous happens. We grow softer, clearer, lighter. If someone has left your life recently, or even long ago, but their absence still haunts you, try sitting beside the river in your own heart. Picture them as that leaf. Let them float. You don't have to push them away. You only have to stop pulling them back. They came for a reason. They left for a reason. And now, you're still here, not broken, just becoming. But what about the goodbyes that don't feel complete? The ones that didn't just drift away, but tore something open inside you? Not every departure is quiet. Some leave behind echoes, confusion, and pain that linger like a shadow. Let's walk into that shadow now, because sometimes the ones who hurt us the most hold the deepest mirrors. 2. Painful goodbyes or hidden mirrors. You can hear your thoughts louder than ever before. Questions repeat, memories replay. You lie awake wondering if you could have done something differently, if maybe, just maybe, they would have stayed. But the truth is, not every painful goodbye is a loss. Sometimes it's a mirror. There's an old Zen parable about a student who once broke his teacher's favorite tea bowl. In panic and shame, he tried to replace it. But when the master found out, he simply smiled and said, "The crack is where the truth enters." Now it finally reflects the real lesson. Sometimes the people who hurt us the most are not here to stay. They're here to awaken. They trigger parts of us that we buried, old wounds, unspoken insecurities, hidden patterns we don't even know we carry until someone comes close enough to press against them. We often blame others for reopening wounds. But what if they didn't reopen them? What if they simply revealed that they were never fully closed? A partner who leaves us out of nowhere might bring up deep-seated fears of abandonment. A friend who betrays our trust might reflect our struggle to trust ourselves. Even a parent's rejection can be a lifelong echo of the belief that we are not worthy of being chosen. And all of this, if we don't pause to look, gets buried beneath blame or guilt. Painful goodbyes aren't just endings. They are reflections. They ask us, what in me is still unresolved? What in me was this person sent to show? On a physiological level, the body holds on to emotional pain just like it does physical trauma. You might feel it as a heaviness in the chest, a constant tightness in the throat, a knot in the stomach that never fully relaxes. The body doesn't forget, and if the emotional wound is never processed, The body continues to prepare itself for pain that has already happened, living in a state of quiet defense. That defense becomes chronic tension, fatigue, even illness. Not because your body's broken, but because it's still guarding an invisible wound. And the mind doesn't help much either. When someone leaves us painfully, the mind tries to solve the loss. It looks for reasons, blames, and replays scenes over and over again. This rumination creates a loop, not just mentally, but energetically. You remain entangled with the one who hurt you long after they're gone, not because they're still in your life, but because they're still inside your story. That story has weight. It shapes how you view yourself, how you approach new relationships, and what you believe you deserve. If the story remains unexamined, it becomes a filter, a lens of fear, mistrust, or unworthiness. But here's the quiet truth. Every goodbye that cracked you open gave you a chance to finally see what's inside. And not everything inside is broken. Some of it is deeply alive, waiting to be felt, waiting to be healed. There's a strange kind of freedom that comes when you stop asking why they hurt you and start asking what they awaken in you. From a Buddhist view, suffering is not a punishment. It's a path to clarity. The ones who hurt us are not always enemies. Sometimes they are sacred mirrors. They reveal the illusions we were living in, the expectations we were clinging to, the parts of ourselves we still hoped someone else would complete. And the moment we stop blaming and start observing, something begins to soften. That tightness in the body begins to ease. The breath becomes deeper, and the energy that was once stuck in grief starts to move again. The energy you carry is not just yours. It's shared with every memory you still haven't let go of. When someone hurts you and you hold on to that pain, your energetic field contracts. You walk through life more guarded, less trusting, less open to what's next. But when you face that pain with compassion, the energy transforms. Your body feels lighter. You attract differently. You respond with more wisdom and less reaction. Not because you forgave too soon or forgot what happened, but because you finally saw the purpose in it. You no longer carry the echo. You carry the understanding. There is one more story from the Zen tradition. A monk was asked what to do with a sharp thorn that pierced his hand. Instead of pulling it out immediately, he sat with it, observed it, then said, "This thorn is not my enemy. It reminded me where I was numb." And only then he removed it, with gratitude. The people who leave painfully are not here to destroy us. They are here to remind us where we need to feel again, where we've gone numb, and where healing is most needed. If someone left you with an ache you can't explain, maybe you don't need to explain it. Maybe you just need to feel it, witness it, and let the mirror do its quiet work. But once we've seen the mirror, once the pain has revealed what needed to be felt, there comes a moment even more difficult than the goodbye itself. The moment we realize we're still holding on to the story, to the wound, to the version of ourselves that pain created. And that's where the true healing begins. Not in understanding why they left, but in learning how to let go. Let's walk into that quiet, courageous space, the sacred act of release. 3. Letting go is a sacred act of self-love. Letting go, it sounds simple. 2 small words, but inside them live years of memory, attachment, fear, and love. Most people think letting go means forgetting, or giving up, or no longer caring. But true letting go is none of those things. It is not weakness. It is not apathy. It is an act of quiet power, perhaps the most radical form of love you can offer to yourself. In the Zen tradition, there is a story about a monk who carried a heavy rock everywhere he went. When people asked him why, he said, "It reminds me of what I've endured." One day an elder simply asked him, "But do you need to suffer every day to remember who you are?" The monk paused and, for the first time, placed the stone beside a flowing stream. He watched it rest there, and something in him softened too. That is the essence of release, not throwing something away, but placing it down with reverence, looking at what once served you, what once shaped you, and saying, "Thank you, you can rest now." We often associate release with betrayal, of memory, of loyalty, of love, especially when the person we're letting go of once meant the world to us. But in truth, release is the highest form of gratitude. You are honoring what once was, while making room for what is ready to become. The difficulty with letting go lies not only in the mind, but in the body. The human system stores attachment in places we rarely notice. Shoulders that stay raised, jaws that stay clenched, stomachs that churn in anticipation of a loss that already happened. We keep reliving the moment of their departure, not because we want to, but because the body hasn't felt safe enough to stop. And so we repeat, not just emotionally, but physically, in our posture, our breath, even our voice. But something beautiful begins to happen when we make space for the body to release what it's been carrying. The breath softens, the heartbeat slows, and underneath all the layers of grief and longing, something else emerges. Silence. A gentle, healing silence that doesn't ache, it holds. The silence isn't empty, it's sacred. It marks the space where your spirit begins to return to itself. Emotionally letting go is about no longer seeking resolution from the person who hurt you. It's about releasing the need for an apology, for closure, for their understanding. You stop waiting for them to fix the hole they left because you realize it's not a hole anymore. It's space. Space for light, space for peace, space for something you were never able to access while holding on to what was never meant to stay. Energetically, every time we cling to someone who's already gone, whether physically or emotionally, we anchor ourselves to a version of life that no longer exists. And that creates friction, a sense of inner split. One part of you is moving forward, while the other part is still standing at the door, hoping it might open again. But when you let go, that energy unfreezes. What was stuck begins to flow. You stop resisting what is and begin aligning with what's ready to arrive. This doesn't happen all at once. Sometimes letting go is not a single act, but a daily decision to not check their social media, to not reread old texts, to not rehearse the same conversation in your mind again and again. Each of these small acts is a form of sacred self-loyalty, because in choosing release, you're saying, my peace matters more than my need for closure. My present deserves more attention than my past. My healing is not dependent on someone else's return. One more Zen teaching worth remembering here. A student once asked his master, "How do I know I've truly let go?" The master replied, "When the thought of them no longer stirs the waters. That's when you know. Not when you forget, but when remembering them no longer disturbs your inner stillness." So if you're holding on to someone or something that no longer fits the person you're becoming, if your hands are tired from gripping what is already gone, let this be the moment you place the stone down. Let this be the moment you whisper, not to them, but to yourself, "I set you free." And in doing so, I set myself free too. And now that the weight has been laid down, something unexpected happens. There's space. Space where pain used to live. Space where longing used to ache. And in that space, something beautiful starts to return. Not them, but you. Let's step into that space now and explore how reclaiming your energy begins. 4. After letting go, you reclaim your energy. There's something strangely quiet after the storm of letting go. At first, the stillness may feel unfamiliar, like a room that used to be filled with noise suddenly falling into silence. But if you stay with it long enough, you begin to realize it's not emptiness, it's space. And space is not a loss, it's an opening. In Buddhism, space is sacred. Without space, no breath can enter. Without emptiness, no form can arise. So too in life. The moment we let go of who or what no longer belongs, we don't just lose, we begin to receive. When you've been carrying the weight of a person who left, your energy is constantly leaking into the past, thinking of them, trying to make sense of what happened, replaying conversations, imagining different endings. All of this consumes energy, emotional, mental, even physical. It's no surprise then that after a long period of grief or holding on, many people feel depleted. Not just sad, but exhausted, like their spirit has been slowly drained. But that exhaustion isn't a permanent condition. It's a signal that too much of you has been invested in what no longer feeds you. And so, when the act of release truly happens, not just in words, but in the body, in the breath, in the nervous system, there's a return, not of the other person, but of your energy. You begin to notice things you hadn't felt in a long time. The warmth of the morning light on your face, the quiet joy in drinking tea alone, the freedom of not checking your phone every hour, hoping for a message. This return of energy doesn't arrive all at once. It comes in waves, in subtle shifts. But it's real. On a biological level, when emotional rumination fades, the body recalibrates. Your stress response begins to slow. Sleep becomes deeper. Digestion improves. You feel more present in your skin, more rooted in the now. Because your system is no longer defending against a threat that left long ago. Emotionally, you also begin to detach from the identity you formed around pain. You're no longer the person who was abandoned. You're no longer stuck in the story of the one who was left behind. You're just you, present, open, breathing. And something remarkable happens when you stop pouring your attention into what's gone. You create a new signal, a different kind of presence, and that presence begins to attract people, experiences, and opportunities that are more aligned with your current state, not the state you were trapped in while holding on. This is not a metaphor. It's a very real shift in energy. As you reclaim your focus, your breath, your inner stillness, the world responds. Because everything is in resonance. The world doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you are. So when you're no longer vibrating with fear, loss, or desperation, when your field is spacious, peaceful, and trusting, different things find their way to you. Not because you chased them, but because you became the space where they belong. This is what reclaiming energy means. Not forcing a comeback, not getting over it, but gently calling back every part of yourself that was sent chasing after someone who left. In Zen, there's a quiet ritual known as gathering the scattered mind. It's a moment of pausing and saying, "Come back, come home, I am here now." And piece by piece, your spirit returns. So if you've recently let go of someone, or even something, a dream, a phase of life, a version of who you used to be, know that it's okay to feel the ache. But also know that ache will pass, and what follows is a lightness you may have forgotten existed. You'll wake up one morning and the sadness won't be gone, but it will feel quieter. You'll look in the mirror and see not a person who was left, but a person who stayed present, who stayed soft, who stayed open. And that is your power. You didn't lose them. You found yourself again. But even as this energy returns, even as you begin to feel more whole, more centered, more yourself, there's still a lingering question in the background. If they left, did that mean I wasn't enough? Was their departure a reflection of my worth? Let's walk into that question and discover the truth hidden beneath every goodbye. 5. The truth: you were never left, you were becoming. Sometimes when someone walks away, it feels like the world stops spinning for a moment, as if the fabric of your worth suddenly tears open. You try to act like it doesn't matter, but something inside whispers the old wound. If they left, I must not have been enough. This belief, though rarely spoken aloud, lives quietly inside so many of us. It shows up in the way we doubt ourselves, in how we question every word we say, every gesture we make, in how we start to see ourselves through the eyes of someone who chose to walk away. But here's what most people never realize. Just because someone exits your life doesn't mean you were unworthy of their presence. It simply means they weren't meant to stay for the next chapter. In the philosophy of impermanence, the departure of others isn't seen as rejection. It's seen as movement, flow, a shift in season. Everything that comes into your life has its timing, its cycle, its purpose. And when that purpose has been fulfilled, life redirects you. Even if the redirection feels like abandonment at first, you were not left because you were too much or not enough. You were moved into solitude so something new could form within you. Not as punishment, but as preparation. It is during those quiet, broken seasons that something ancient begins to stir inside. You begin to ask different questions. Not why did they leave, but who am I without them? Not what did I do wrong, but what is life trying to show me through this? These questions don't come from pain. They come from awakening. Biologically, when we're hurt by someone's absence, our brain searches for certainty. It wants to protect us from future rejection, so it often turns inward. It must have been me. But this response is not a reflection of truth. It's a safety reflex. The truth is deeper, quieter, and far more generous. You were not rejected. You were released so that a deeper version of you could rise. Emotionally, this is the point where many people either harden or open. Some build walls, others build mirrors. When you harden, you carry your pain forward into every future interaction. You become guarded, hesitant, unwilling to fully feel. But when you open, you begin to see that the person who left wasn't the source of your worth. They were the catalyst for its rediscovery. And when you begin to walk that inner path, something strange and beautiful happens. You change your energy. You stop broadcasting desperation or longing. You begin to radiate presence, wholeness, not because everything is perfect, but because you are no longer seeking from the outside what always lived within. This change doesn't need anyone to witness it. It happens in small ways. You stop checking your phone as much. You stop needing someone to understand your silence. You start walking differently, eating differently, breathing like you belong here, because you do. When the energy of "I need them to come back" shifts into "I trust where life is taking me," the entire field around you rearranges. New relationships feel less desperate. Old triggers lose their grip. Opportunities arise that match the calm you've cultivated, not the chaos you used to carry. This isn't a performance. It's not about proving anything. It's simply alignment. You're no longer in conflict with what is. You're no longer begging the past to give you something it no longer holds. And the irony is, the moment you stop needing people to stay, you begin to attract those who are ready to stand beside you, because your energy no longer demands, it invites. In Zen, there is a saying, "The blossom falls not because it is unloved, but because the season is complete." What was left wasn't proof of your failure. It was proof of your unfolding. So now, instead of asking why they left, ask why you are still here. What strength woke up inside you through the loss? What softness emerged in your solitude? What part of you was born because they could no longer stay? You were not broken. You were becoming. You were not left behind. You were lifted into a version of yourself that only silence could shape. So now you know, the goodbye that shattered you wasn't the end. It was the beginning of becoming softer, of becoming clearer, of becoming more fully you. Everyone who came into your life played a role, some to teach, some to love, some to break your heart wide open so you could feel again. They didn't leave because you weren't enough. They left because your story with them was complete, and your story with yourself had just begun. You are not what they took when they walked away. You are what remained, what refused to collapse, the stillness, the breath, the quiet will to grow. Letting go wasn't the end of the relationship. It was the beginning of self-respect. Healing didn't happen because someone returned. It happened because you did. So if this message stirred something in you, if it helped you breathe a little deeper or see yourself a little differently, comment below. I am ready to let go. Let your words be a light for someone else still waiting in the dark. And if you know someone holding on in quiet pain, share this video with them. You never know whose healing your honesty might begin. And remember, your journey isn't over. In fact, it's only just unfolding.